everyone, welcome to Bikini Design Club. This is the first of a series of videos that we are preparing for you just to talk about flounces. Yes, the first thing is I really felt like I should do a video about this and a complete video because we are having a lot of patterns that include flounces. So we really wanted you to know how you can change the look on the flounces. But the first thing that we realized is that there's a huge, I don't think it's a mistake, but there's a lot of confusion between what's a ruffle, what's a flounce. So I've been reading about it, and what I've learned is that I referred a lot of times to flounces as ruffles, even on my tutorials. But now that I know what I'm the correct term, I'm gonna go ahead and use the correct term from now on. So the difference, just for you to know, the big difference is flounces are more soft and are cut circular or spiral, but the ruffles are gathered with the ruching of the fabric, and it's a piece of fabric that's most of the times it's a rectangle, and then you just do the ruffles by scrunching on your sewing machine. So as you can see, I'm doing a ruffle in a rectangle in a piece of fabric, just giving tension to my elastic and sewing with a zigzag stitch, and as I was telling you, this is a ruffle. So here you can see the final result. This would be the outside with the zigzag. And here we can compare the ruffle, as I told you. It was a rectangle with the tension of the elastic, and the flounce. So now you know the difference. The flounce is more soft, and the way it drapes on your body, it's completely different. The flare is completely different. So we are going to talk about flounces. We are going to show you how to do them, how to calculate the diameter if you want to make them more extreme, the flare more accentuated or less. We are going to talk about everything. So if you want to keep up with all our videos related to this, don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel. But for now, let's go to our first video. And so to start today, in this first video, we are going to do the beginning for all the flounces that you may want to add to your pattern. The first thing we're going to do is talk about the calculations and how to calculate the diameter of the circumference, or the radius if you prefer, if you want to make a full circle or if you want to do half circle, and how that influences the flare. And lastly, we are also going to talk about the flounces that you can start by having a certain high and then do an effect and end up having much less high in the end of the flounce. If you are wondering, this is our Marla top and this is our CAD bottoms with the high waist option. You have this in high waist and low waist. This was one of the tests for the high waists. And this is our Marla top with the flounce. Actually, when I did this flounce, I did this with one big circle from the front to the back. And as you can see, the flounce is not very pronounced, so you don't have a lot of flare on this. If you wanted more flare, stay with us to find out how you should do it. So on today's video, we will talk about circular flounces, how to do the calculations for the radius of the circumference, but also if you want to accentuate the flare, how you can do it. We will also talk about half circle flounces and how to make irregular flounces with different heights from the beginning to the end of the flounce. So the first thing we need to decide is, according to the length of the area on our swimsuit pattern that we want to apply the flounce, you write down the length, Then we need to calculate the radius for the full circumference. And it's very simple. Is the length where you are going to sew your flounce divided by 6.28, which in our case we are going to demonstrate with a 20 centimeters, so it will be 3.18 radius. Smaller the radius, more flare you get. Okay, so let's go over to our computer and draw exactly what we were describing. In my case, I'm going to do this on my designing software. So I'm going to start by doing a circumference with our radius 3.18. And this is the radius of our flounce, the area where we are going to sew the flounce. Now I'm going to offset, so make a parallel circumference with the height of the flounce, which I've defined as being 8 centimeters. And now the internal line that we've done previously is going to be converted to hole. And finally, just I'm going to make a line here, and this will be parallel to my grain line. I'm going to cut, and here I have my flounce. Now I'm going to apply the seam allowance on the inside because it's where the flounce will be sewn to the pattern, and no hem is knitted or seam allowance on the outside since it's a swimsuit, and we do not apply seam allowances outside. Before we see the results, let's do for the same length a half circle flounce, so that then we can see the difference between half a circle and a full circle. So in this case, we just divide 20 per 3.14, which will give us 6.37 centimeters. And we will do a circumference with 6.37 centimeters radius. So let's see this being drawn. Now we are going to do exactly the same, but with the calculations that we have just written. So the radius of the circumference will be different. It will be 6.37 instead of the 3 something that we had before. And this will be the area that will be sewn to our bikini or swimsuit or whatever. In my case, I again did 8 centimeters, so you will see me here doing offsets of 8 centimeters. It's the height of the flounce. And then, just in my case, I need to open a hole doing certain clicks and clicks here, and I will be able to open the hole in the middle. And again, a line from the top edges so that we will open the flounce. But we are not there yet, because I told you that we were going to make a half a circle flounce. So now, besides of course applying the seam allowance, I will then cut this in half, and we will only use half of the circumference as our flounce. For this demonstration, I now sewn the flounce to this bikini top. On the left, I have the one with a full circle, and on the right, I have the one with half circle. And as you can see, the result is very different. You have much more flare where the radius is smaller, so on your left flounce. Now let's play a little bit. If you want to have a different height on the beginning of the flounce and on the end of the flounce, you can then redraw using the same internal distance that we had for our circle, but on the outside you can reshape the entire curve and have a different flounce from the beginning until the end of the flounce. You can make smoother on the edges instead of edge corners, whatever. Just play around and have fun. You can see the result of what I'm doing on my 2D window, on my 3D window, so you can already preview a lot of differences between what we had before and what we have now. So this is just an example of all the things that you can do. And if you are wondering if this pattern is available, if it's still not when you see this video, it will be. Now let's assemble our pattern and see how this goes in real life, not 3D. We now have here our 3 examples that we have drawn before. We have the full circle with the smaller radius. We have the half circumference with the bigger radius. And the other one is just the play around that I was doing with the rounded edges, and also with the higher beginning of the flounce and ending a little bit lower. I think any of these options is good for you, but don't forget that once you are doing a flounce for a certain length, the thing that can happen is that you may have short of fabric if you didn't calculate well. Or for instance, in Marla top, I wanted to make one for the front and one flounce for the back, so you have to connect them between them, and this means you actually need to calculate not only the length but also the seam allowance between the connections of the two flounces. So maybe one of the best options would be the spiral one, but let's see how these ones go, because the flare is different from the spiral and I want you to have all the options on the table. So I have cut it already, and I always use my cutter because I want the sharp edges to be perfect, since we are not going to do any seam allowances. So that's why I always use my cutter. And so we have here the one that it has different heights, and we also have the full circle and half circle. Let's just align them all on the same way on a vertical, and you will see the different effects that each experiment will have. So here we have all the three together, ready to compare. So the one on the left is the half circle, which had 6 point something centimeters radius, and you can see the flare. It's very soft compared to the other ones. So this is the one with half circle 6. Then the one in the middle, it's this one with this much intenser flare. So the shorter the radius, the much intense effect you have. And the one on the right, which I rounded the corners and I ended up doing higher on the top and less high on the low part of the flounce. So these are the three options that you have, and you just need to choose which one is the best for your project. So now you know a lot of things that probably you didn't knew before, but we are still starting, so let's move on to our video number 2, and we will talk about double layer flounces. So you may want to have more than one layer of flounces. They can have the same size, different sizes in height, of course, and you can also do some things with the fabric that I'm gonna show you. Some experiments that I did that actually gave a very nice look to the flounce. So stay with us for our second video.